Hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. How's everyone doing? I thought that it would be fun to hop on and read some more from this gem of a book, Between Two Worlds by Nandor Fodor, who also just has a really fun name to say, right? And like I said last time, it reminds me of Nandor the Relentless, which is always a good time to be reminded. Look, it's always a good time to be reminded of Nandor the Relentless, okay? I'm just saying. I also sometimes, well, actually quite often have these moments where I'm like, did I just say the thing that I just said? And of course I did. But anyways, you just really never know. You really never know what you're going to hear around these parts. And that's fine. This is the journey that we're on. This is where we are. We, me, and the voices. Just the one intrusive voice. My lovely little friend. Anyways, but perhaps I meant we, as in me and this little fellow. This little fellow, my little Nepalese Yeti ornament, who is always near me when I record these videos. Anyways, I just got done doing a recording for the Patreon, Let's Ghost Patreon. So I also had the same conversation over there in which I said something, kind of just maybe not unhinged, but just rambly and chaotic within like the first few moments. And I was musing about, why am I the way that I am? But you know what? It's okay. It's all about you can't be like all work and no play, right? Anyways, I wanted to hop on and read some more from this book, Between Two Worlds by Nandor Fodor. And because I just went to Baltimore in August. Hello, Marley. Oh my gosh. So I am reading a story from Between Two Worlds by Nandor Fodor. And I am reading the one titled The Baltimore Poltergeist, even though it's backwards. It's backwards, baby. Hello. Because I just went to Baltimore in August. And so I thought, let me hop on. I haven't started reading it yet. So you're hopping on at the very beginning. But I thought that it would be fun to read Nandor. Yes, Monica. I've been on for just like a few minutes. Emily. Oh my gosh. All my friends are here. Okay. So Monica, I was just saying at the very beginning of this, I was like, it's always fun to read from Nandor Fodor because it's just such a good name to say. It's such a good name. And it reminds me of Nandor the Relentless, right? Come on. I am never mad about something that makes me envision, Nandor the Relentless. And hello. Okay, so let us get into the story of the Baltimore Poltergeist as outlined in this book, Between Two Worlds, written by Nandor Fodor. Just such a great name. Originally published in 1964, came out a few short years later in this paperback version in 1967. So let's go. Okay, the Baltimore Poltergeist. On January 14th, 1960, at the house of Mr. Edgar J. Jones at 1448 Meriden Drive. Nandor coming out strong, just full on, basically doxing, whatever. Anyways, Meridan, it's Meridan. I should look that up and see if, right? Not Meridian, because you would think so. It's Meridan. Meridan. 1448 Meridan, I don't know. Drive in Baltimore, Maryland. A typical poltergeist outbreak was reported in the local press. Is there such thing? A typical poltergeist outbreak was reported in the local press, the mental background of which promised to be rewarding for psychoanalytical inquiry. Psychoanalyst, that's what Nandor did. Okay. I left for Baltimore on Wednesday, January 20th, and arrived shortly after midnight. On the train, from the meager information in my possession, I tried to form a picture of the motives that could have activated this poltergeist. In this entry, by the way, and in others, Nandor capitalizes poltergeist, which is kind of interesting to me, and I kind of love it. I kind of love that he capitalizes poltergeist, but anyways. On the train, from the meager information in my possession, it's such like a scenic like image in my head. This like, I'm envisioning Nandor with like, I don't know, just like a hat and like a coat, trench coat, like with some papers in front of him, like in a dimly lit train, like with 3 other people in the cab car. I tried to form a picture of the motives that could have activated this poltergeist. I was told... Wait a second. I am having another one of like Courtney's chaotic musings moments, which doesn't really take much at all to happen. But because I pictured that scene of like Nandor sitting in like a dimly lit train car, like going through like, you know, just the neighborhoods of Baltimore, like after midnight randomly in 1960. Somebody totally needs, bye Emily, getting a burrito. Okay. Have fun. So as I'm like picturing this scene like so vividly, I'm just sitting here thinking somebody needs to like turn these stories in this book into a graphic novel. Can you imagine how amazing that would be? I got to talk to one of my librarian colleagues who is a graphic novel creator and artist. I got to be like, hey, I have an idea. Okay, let's get back to the actual story. Hello. Okay. I tried to form a picture of the motives that could have activated this poltergeist. I was told of a young boy of 17 who was not a Jones, but went under the name of Ted Pauls. Ted Pauls? I don't trust, look, just 2 first names. I don't know. Anyways, it was not clear to me that he was a grandson, and pardonably, I derived the wrong impression that he had given up his family name. Okay. The assumption that he was trying to escape from his family by a change of name was erroneous, but I was informed that he was an ardent science fiction fan and devoted all his time to this particular interest. It seemed to conform to my first impression of escapism. I mean, if that's the case, if all it takes is like a real strong, ability to escape. Hello, Britt. Oh my God. If all of that takes, I should be creating poltergeist every 5 seconds, because your girl can daydream like it is an Olympic sport. But let's continue. It seemed to conform to my first impression of escapism. Basically, science fiction serves well for an escape from mundane limitations. In the case of a writer of science fiction, there would be a sublimation of the need of escape by turning it into creative channels through storytelling of the magnificence of far-off worlds whirling in the depth of space. How do you know you're not, though? You always have the best questions and insights. You're right. I'm like narrating my own live stream now. It was at this moment that the weird librarian completely began to rethink her life. Oh my God, you're right. I don't know that I'm not. That noise that I heard like outside a few seconds ago before I hopped on the live stream that I just assumed was a raccoon in my yard. You're right. Actually, you're right. I think you're right. Let's see. In the reader, however, the relaxation and entertainment found in such fantasies may well be a screen for the archaic yearning of returning into the prenatal state. Archaic yearning is, I don't know if you guys knew this, but that is also what you can refer to someone whose astrological sign is that of Cancer. You can refer to them as Cancer, or you can call us archaic yearners. Wow, this article is like blowing my mind. Okay. A distinct planet in the womb of space. Nandor, womb of space, is an excellent substitute for the fetal island. Wow, Nandor. The child being in its own universe, where earthly postnatal ties had not yet existed. One would be hard put to find a better escape from reality than a journey into space. Colleen, you understand the Cancerian journey. You understand. Okay. Ted Pauls did not write science fiction. He was satisfied with editing a multi-graph discussion sheet called Fanjack. Look, I'm not taking a chaotic ramble down that rabbit hole. I thought that this might bear on the escape motive. Then it occurred to me that interstellar space and the worlds scattered in it are also the habitat in science fiction stories of non-human life. There is a corresponding facet... Hello. There is a corresponding facet to that in embryonic evolution. The thought intrigued me because the linguistic equation of Ted Pauls with tadpole. Oh my God. Ted Pauls, tadpole. Nandor is getting like real deeply philosophical here. I think basically he's been traveling probably for like, a solid 24 hours. He is going a little out of his mind on this post-midnight dimly lit train journey through the suburbs of Baltimore. Okay, what's in a name? Shakespeare had asked the question but did not answer it, at least not to the satisfaction of psychoanalysis. I have dealt with the problem in comprehensive manner in an essay in the journal Calcutta. Okay. Could Ted Pauls have fallen under the spell of his own name? What? I found out afterwards that his father did pronounce his name as Poles. Okay. An impish thought followed and I began to chuckle. It would be funny if he had long legs like a frog to leap off into space. Okay. I'm convinced Nandor is absolutely sleep deprived, probably has not eaten or hydrated adequately in this day. He is writing these reflections and sitting here being like the kid, the 17-year-old at the center of this poltergeist case whose name is Ted Pauls. Sounds like tadpoles. And wouldn't it be hilarious if I roll up to the house and Ted Paul has really long legs? He is losing his mind. And perhaps, yes, Colleen also perhaps maybe smoked something. Look, Nandor, I love this journey that you're taking us on. Okay. As a science fiction fan, he would be acquainted with Abraham Merritt's The Moon Pool, an outstanding classic in which giant frogmen from Lemurian times stalk the earth in underground caverns. Nandor is a primary doctor's nightmare patient. You are so right. You are so right. Oh my gosh, this Nandor is losing his mind on this train ride, and he has gifted us. He is time traveling to us from January 1960. Oh my God. Look, okay, I love this. On my arrival, this fantasy was nurtured by local information. Ted Pauls had long legs. Do you think the person who made... Wasn't that movie like Long Legs? Wait, with Nicolas Cage? What was that called? Do you think that person read this story by Nandor Fodor? Do you think it was Nandor? Like secretly like continuing to time travel like out in like the psychical ether? Anyways, oh my God, you guys. On my arrival, this fantasy was nurtured by local information. Ted Pauls had long legs. And moreover, he walked like a frog. This poor kid. With widespread feet. And when sitting in his favorite rocking chair, the chandelier would set to swinging by the poltergeist, and it always moved from north to south. I love everything about this. This seemed to be a secret signature, as north and south are determined by the poles. Ted Pauls, Tadpole. Oh my God. This is a case study, I think, also of Nandor just losing his grip. I love this so much. You guys, this is why you read, okay? This is why you should read. Because you will find gems like this. Okay. The rocking, of course, hinted at cradle days, or the undulating movements of the maternal body during gestation. Oh, we're back to the fetal symbolism. I was told he assumed the rocking position automatically and seemed to derive a great deal of pleasure from it. So some like self-soothing happening. There it was then, a wonderful fantasy of escapism, which turned out to be entirely my own fancy. Observations in the haunted house quickly pushed it into the background. The chandelier could well act in unison with his rocking, as the living room, where the rocking chair was longitudinal to the dining room in which the chandelier was hung. His brain had to have been on fire, but he must have had so much fun finding out he was right. I know. This is hilarious. Oh God. Hence, north and south was a natural direction. The kitchen was latitudinal, but it was not a place for continued stay. It was therefore unnecessary to connect the swinging chandelier with rocking memories. The topographical situation was sufficient to account for the preferred movement. Moreover, Ted Paul's interest in science fiction was not devoid of a creative element. I brought up the question of Merritt's The Moon Pool in a discussion of science fiction books. He could not have had any idea that the question was baited. He answered that he had never read the book. I inspected his library later. There was only one book by Merritt, and it was not The Moon Pool. The reality situation soon disposed of the fancy that Ted Pauls was a frog. He wrote that sentence. Hang on. We have to... Oh, that is the best. You guys, this needs to be a sticker. It needs to be a bookmark. It needs to be... The reality situation soon disposed of the fancy that Ted Pauls was a frog. Nandor, I love you so much. Oh my God. The natural narcissism we have for our names must have completely blinded him to the tadpole interpretation. Oh my God. So my fancy did not expose him. It only exposed myself as a fantastical fan of strong mystical inclinations. He could have just left out the entire discussion because he discovered that Ted Pauls was not a frog. But he leaves it in. He leaves it in for all of us to enjoy and encounter. And it is truly the gift that keeps on giving that Nandor has bestowed upon us. This is one of the singular best sentences that I have ever read in my entire life. And it necessitates a third reading. The reality situation soon disposed of the fancy that Ted Pauls was a frog. Gets better every time. Nandor is a weirdo. More at 10. Yep. Nandor is such such a weirdo. You guys, I touched his, whoa. Why did I say it like that? But I handled this. That's not better either. I went to the archives, okay? And I held his personal scrapbook in my hands. And like, held is not even the right word, because this thing is like 3.5 feet tall. It is gigantic. It is like the size of a coffee table. Like the width and the length. It was insane. But I accessed it. At Baltimore, at the archives, I touched every single page of it and like flipped it and took photos. I'm going to have to share that. But anyways, Ted Pauls is not a frog. So my fancy did not expose him. It only exposed myself as a fantasy fan of strong mystical inclinations. But you know what, Nandor? It's okay. Because I, too, am a fantastical fan of strong mystical inclination, and probably some of you listening are as well. And I love that journey for us. And that was precisely the approach I used with Ted Pauls. I took with me to Baltimore a science fiction book, Asimov's 9 Tomorrows, and inscribed it to him as from one science fiction fan to another. It was a first and fortunate meeting point between us, for as I found out by this time, Ted Pauls was getting bitter and hostile to publicity, to the presence of a crowd of journalists, and to the nuisance he and his family was exposed to. One frustrated journalist demanded that he should confess to a conscious responsibility for the flight of objects and for the explosive manifestations that accompanied it. He was roused and wrote a letter of angry protest to his editor, a protest very well composed and completely ignored. There was a distinct possibility that the situation would become further aggravated unless a face saving was presented to the baffled journalist. Okay. Let's see. Where are we continuing? My appearance on the scene as a poltergeist expert fulfilled this need. They did not have to have an opinion of their own. They could quote me and hang everything on my statements. So I had an ideal opportunity to release the pressure in both camps. The journalists were easy. They were courteous and respectful. The problem was Ted Pauls. Could I win his full confidence? Frankly, I didn't know. I was floundering in a sea of uncertainty. While I had not witnessed any disturbance, I accepted the record. It was carefully compiled by a fellow researcher, Douglas Dean. He examined every witness and arranged for a number of scientific tests to rule out the physical factors that people like to fall back on. A case was established for poltergeist activity. Hence, the key to the mystery had to lie in the psyche of Ted Pauls. He was above the age that things had been... He was above... like the age of puberty, but things had been happening in the house before at Christmas time, for instance. Twice in the preceding years, the decorative ornaments on the Christmas tree had exploded with no known reason. What? I thought he must have had a strong grievance against Christmas. His birthday was on December 16th, but his grandfather assured me that they never pooled his birthday and Christmas gifts. Christmas is a universal birthday symbol. His own birth preceded it by 9 days. Here we go again. The term of gestation in months. Nandor cannot let this go. But I was assured that his birth was normal and that he had suffered no injuries during delivery. Hence, the existence of a trauma of birth could only have been proven from Ted Paul's dreams, and he did not have any to tell me. What? Britt, is that your birthday too? What? December 16th? Excuse me, Britt? Do you share a birthday with Ted Pauls? Do you? Because that's actually really rad. Okay. Nevertheless, the Christmas mystery cannot be dismissed too easily. For birth can be an intense experience. Yeah, I mean, I think it survives in the unconscious as such. It may strongly reinforce other feelings of imperfection and provide, through a rebellion against fate, an unconscious motive for poltergeist activity. I'd never heard that. Oh no, I froze. What? Am I summoning like the poltergeist ghost of Ted Pauls? Oh my God, Brit is a tadpole. I love this. I love that we can like discover new things about ourselves every time we get on this live. I love it. I have never heard this theory of like the memories of birth. And anyways, as far as I was able to find out, Ted Pauls had no physical ailments, just little peculiarities like his walk. He literally says he walks like a frog. And the odd angle of one of his eyes. He's really just like being brutal. Okay. I had no time to consult his family doctor or his school psychiatrist, a job with which Douglas Dean had charged himself, but I did find out. Sorry, it did it again. Weird. No. Am I freezing to anyone else? Or is it just on Brit's end because you have a connection with Ted Pauls? Your phone might be afflicted with the summoned poltergeist of Ted Pauls. If it's only happening to you, and if other people say it's not happening, then I don't know what to tell you. I love it. Colleen says everything is fine and we're all good here. Oh my God, Britt. I think you're being visited by the poltergeist. I think you're being visited by the summoned poltergeist of Ted Pauls, aka Tadpole. I think you are. Oh, wait, it did happen to someone else. Okay, well, you're being haunted too. Every time I talk to the camera, it does. Does Ted Pauls not want his story being told? What is happening? Okay, let's continue. I guess I better just continue reading. Okay, let's see here. He had no... Teddy, you silly frog. Well, he had no girlfriend. He did have interest in girls, and only his shyness kept him away from their company. He appeared, in all accounts, quite normal. But before more is said of his motivation, let us place emphasis on the fact that the disturbance his age might have been responsible for the poltergeist activity, restrained as it was at Christmas time. It's an important stage of transition that well may have mobilized the unconscious imprint of the greatest transition we ever make until death, the entrance into postnatal life. Oh, here he continues with this like, Jana, hello. No doubt an explanation could be found for the dormancy period, but I did not have time to pursue this line of investigation. The question is often raised why such disturbances should be confined to one person in the household. Could not there be a contribution from other sources, a kind of pooling of paranormal talent? Pooling. He's just very like... so many analogies here. We can safely rule out the grandparents because of their age. At 70 or more, one has no vitality to waste. Nandor. Dude. We can safely rule out the grandparents because of their age. Look, parapsychologists nowadays have done studies on poltergeist activity even in like nursing homes and stuff. So anyways, we can also rule out, it is harsh, right, Jenna? We can also rule out the parents because they're away during the day. But can you really? Could we consider the dog? Hardly. There are no polter dogs. Oh my God. That is a line. There are no, where is it? There are no polter dogs. This is a gift. It does, look, yes, that does feel a little biased. It feels, could we consider the dog? Hardly. There are no polter dogs. Christy, the 3-year-old female schnauzer, was not an agent, but a victim of the poltergeist. She cowered and tried to hide before the phenomena took place. Okay, that's actually really sad. How does this person know that there are no polter dogs? Agreed, Jana. Agreed. Nandor literally thought Ted Pauls was a frog, but now he's like, no, polter. Where does he draw the line? You cannot have polter dogs, but I'm straight up going to think that you might be a frog. Look, I think this story is actually just, it is revealing so much to us about the state of Nandor at this point in his life. And you know what? That's fine. Because I have affectionately been like, I'm choosing to use the word affectionately. Like every now and then I go through a little season of life called the spiral season. And I feel like that's also very Cancerian coded. Maybe others of you have gone on this like spiral season of life. And I feel like Nandor was in a spiral season here. So polter frogs are a yes, but not polter dogs. Yes, TLDR, polter frogs, not polter dogs. That is the greatest thing I think I have said all year. Thank you for enabling that. Jana, yeah, you get it. You get it. We all do, right? Okay, so Christy, the schnauzer, is not a polter dog because she was like scared of all the time. I mean, understandably. She would crouch at the door and scratch frantically to be let out, and this would happen a few seconds or minutes before something would fly off the shelf or explode. Christy knew she might not be a polter dog, but she senses she is psychical. Okay? Her behavior was the best evidence that something spooky was going on in the house. Had I told Ted Pauls that the poltergeist activity was due to a projection of his repressed aggression against someone in the house, he would have turned indignantly against me and would have withdrawn into a shell. There's a t-shirt somewhere in this polter frog thing. Jana, I think you're right. I think you're right. It is a delicate matter to tell somebody that he is guilty of something he knows nothing about. However, it's not enough to speak of aggression in general terms. Specific reasons should be found. He was not a sleepwalker in childhood. He had not been exposed to humiliation for that. His developmental milestones were unremarkable. I know at least of one instance within my clinical experience in which a psychotic disposition developed on potty training. What in the world? Okay. His mother was not available for an interview, and Ted knew too little about himself. Why was his mom not available for an interview? That's a little weird. He was not a loquacious young man. Okay, but what 17-year-old like kid is? Okay, come on. And there was nothing visible to indicate a disturbed relationship with his parents or grandparents beyond the fact that they did not approve of his quitting school at 16. Okay, well, I can see how that would cause some tension. Anyways, grandfather was a retired fireman who was 70. He had served the fire department for 37 years. No doubt he must have regaled his grandson with plenty of stories of his exploits. He had an easy way to become a hero ideal for his grandson. Proof of it could be seen in Ted's extraordinary interest in fire. This interest caused me anxiety when told about it on my arrival. The thought occurred to me that he may be studying it for arson. There have been incendiary poltergeists in the past. Spontaneous combustion is a far more dangerous phenomenon than the hurling or smashing of objects. But I found that his interest in fires was open and above board. It was most unlikely to become an idea for the poltergeist. While it's true that in one case a can of fruit dislodged from a shelf and hit the grandfather in the head, this single incident was not enough to suggest that the aggression was directed at the grandfather. But the grandfather owned the house, and the house was shared by Ted's parents. Any destruction in the house would hit both parents and grandparents. Against this stands the fact that material damage was slight. More valuable items were avoided, and when removed to a safer place, was not singled out for destruction. Before discussing further the problem of motivation, let us consider the question of the mechanics of poltergeist activities. This is the central mystery. It is not enough to say that the poltergeist is a bundle of projected repression. We should want an answer as to how this projection takes place. What is the nature of the energy involved? Is it muscular, nervous, electric, or electronic? How does it work? We don't know. Therefore, the best we can do is speculative approach. I would call the poltergeist manifestation the result of somatic and psychic dissociation. Somatic dissociation is something new. It's never been postulated before. Remember, this was written in 1960. Well, at this The case is from 1960. He published this in 1964. It means that the human body is capable of releasing energy in a manner similar to atomic bombardments. Good God. The electron shot out of its orbits around the proton is like a bolt of lightning. It can be photographed streaking through the air in a cloud chamber. It's purely mechanical energy. The atom, as such, has no power to impart direction to it. A human being has. It appears that under strong emotions, not only does such a discharge take place, but that the energy thus released is under control. A poltergeist-thrown object can travel slowly or fast. It can change course as if part of the psyche or of the projector would travel with it, as if the somatic dissociation that releases it would not free it from mental control. But even that hypothesis leaves a great deal unexplained. The explosive effect may be due to pressure in the unconscious, or it may partly release it, or may act as an SOS calling for help. But in the Baltimore case, the force was apparently able to enter Coca-Cola and soda bottles that had not been uncapped and burst them from within. In one instance, a flower pot of plastic material wide open at the top was cracked on both sides by an explosion within that left the plant in the middle undisturbed. It indicated that the bilateral explosion was exceedingly well balanced and hinted at brain activity similar to that of an electronic computing machine. No wonder so many poltergeist cases involve tweens and teens, right? Yeah. So much for the physical aspect, the elucidation of which fell within the range of Douglas Dean's investigation. My job was to find motives and then decide on a course of action. The theory of projected aggression could not be dismissed just because the cause was not apparent. An unconscious storm may well rage behind conscious compliance with an existing situation. He was not suffered to have a goal of life of his own choosing. The fact that he had no friends, that's sad, strongly suggested that the relationship between himself and his schoolmates was not a good one. He might have been subjected to teasing or name-calling. There was his walk. Good God, going back again, his tendency of withdrawal and his intellectual superiority. He claimed that the school could no longer teach him anything. Okay. Bitter against his schoolmates, smoldering for not being understood at home, tension must have been growing deep within. He was a well-mannered boy, exceedingly courteous and careful to preserve appearances and not lacking in courage if provoked. When I first saw him, he faced a crowd that he hated, but he faced it, and the only sign of the tension in him was the whiteness of his knuckles as he gripped the arms of a rocking chair. Nandor is never letting that go. He's truly never letting it go that, like, Ted Paul has walked like a frog. Good Lord. To tell him that he was a monster inside, oh my God, jumping from that to saying, like, you're a monster on the inside would have been considered a preposterous accusation. Yeah, agreed. I just did not know what to do until, out of the blue, a key was presented by the reading of a page of his editorial writing found in the cellar near the multigraph machine. I love that whole sentence. That's like one of the things in Clue. It was in the cellar with the multigraph machine. To my utter amazement, I found that this young boy had a great talent for writing. Rude, right? At 17, he was an accomplished journalist. His vocabulary had left nothing behind, and his editorial handling of Fan Jack showed a rare maturity. He was bursting with a rage for writing. A rage for writing. I love that phrase, though. And no one in his immediate surroundings understood or appreciated him. They considered his preoccupation nonsensical and drove against it with all their might. Was it, I wondered, that the poltergeist activity arose from his frustrated creative rage? I think so. At this thought, I began to breathe easily. I found a therapeutic approach to the problem of the poltergeist. The boy had talent that clamored for expression. Playing the editor was the only balm for his crushed ego. It elevated him above his readers. If then a depressed ego was hiding behind the poltergeist rebellion, raisings of his self-feelings to a higher level would stop the release of his creative channels into abnormal channels. If frustrated creativity was responsible for the explosive manifestations, increasing self-confidence and acceptance of his personality by people around him would cancel the poltergeist. He would be lifted to the heights instead of sinking into the depths. I explained this to Ted, and he drank in the explanation with relief, but I realized I had yet to prove my sincerity. He may have had his mental reservations about me, so I went out on a limb and stated on television and on radio that I had discovered a boy wonder who had surprising literary gifts and that recognition of his talent would seal the breach in his psyche and stop the poltergeist for good. I suggested that he should be commissioned to write the story of the poltergeist and give his own treatment to the subject. That is super creative. It would be not only a worthwhile document, but also one of scientific value. Absolutely. His unusual somatic talent was not necessarily evidence of madness. On the contrary, it may have heralded a gift that he may possess in the future. Or that others may possess in the future. One thing I was certain of, that what I did was good therapy. That was more important to me than to be too scientific. Nandor. I know I was taking considerable risks. I could not be sure that I was right and that the poltergeist phenomena would stop, but I knew that my publicly expressed confidence in him would pay dividends, and it did. I became an angel for Ted Pauls. He was walking on air, beaming with happiness and basking in the sudden change of parental and grandparental attitude. Suddenly, they were proud of him and respected him. He was no longer an irresponsible boy of 17. He had a great future ahead and became the pride of his family. There is such a deeper story here. Oh my God. No room could be left for the poltergeist with such an uplifting of the ego. His psychic energies could no longer explode downwards. He was out to reach the heights. However, I had failed to take into consideration that Ted Pauls might not willingly consent to my departure at such a short notice, that he may well stage a tantrum through poltergeist activity against the severance of the important emotional tie that we formed. The result was that the poltergeist activity did not immediately cease. Rather, it reached a crescendo of rage and frustration. What? Psychoanalytically, this was part of the working through process. While it appeared to go against my therapeutic approach, actually it did not do so. The protest from Ted Paul's unconscious was not maintained for very long and eventually died away. The case is important because accidentally I tumbled on a novel cure of the poltergeist psychosis, so described by me in my book, Haunted People. It is as simple as the egg of Columbus. I don't know what that means. Find the frustrated creative gift, lift up a crushed ego, give love and confidence, and the poltergeist will cease to be. After that, you can still proceed with psychoanalysis, release the unconscious conflicts, but whether you do it or not, a creative self-expression will result in a miraculous transformation. And that is the article. That is the entry. I love that too. He goes, it is as simple as this. Find the frustrated creative gift, lift up a crushed ego, give love and confidence, and the poltergeist will cease to be. Also, polter frogs forever. Oh my God. That was so good. That was so fun. Oh my God. That was the entry, The Baltimore Poltergeist. The Baltimore Poltergeist. Written by Nandor Fodor. In the 1964 book, Between Two Worlds. Thank you, Jana. Thanks for being here. Oh my God, this was so good. Oh, there were some real bangers in here. There were some real awesome ones. Oh gosh. Polter frogs, but not polter dogs. I mean, look, I don't know. This is amazing. On my arrival, Ted Pauls had long legs. Moreover, he walked like a frog. This is hilarious. This was just so good. This was so good. Anyways, if you are curious and you want more, this is the book here. Ask your library to get a copy for you. It might very well be completely available on the Internet Archive, archive.org, perhaps, or Hathi Trust, HATHI. It might be out there completely freely available digitally, or ask your local library to get you a copy. And yeah, this was fun. This is such a fun book to read from. I want to read more from it because Nandor has such a knack. I mean, clearly he has such a knack. Look at this. Here's part 4 of Things That Go Bump in the Night. Part 4 of Things That Go Bump in the Night. And then he has that poem of ghoulies and ghosties of, wait, I can't read backwards, of long-legged beasties, aka tadpoles, of things that go bump in the night. Good Lord, deliver us. I love it. I love it. This was amazing. Thank you all for being here. Happy Thanksgiving week. If you, I guess I'll just say I'm grateful for all of you. We can acknowledge the weirdness of acknowledge the weirdness and problematic history of that, while also saying that I am grateful for all of you being here. 2 things can be true at once, which is something my therapist and I talk about quite often. Anyways, this was so fun. Thank you for going on this journey of polter frogs. Thank you, King Shane the Game, for coming up with the term polter frogs in the first place. That is truly, Nandor is giving us the gift that keeps on giving with this entry, and you are giving us the gift that keeps on giving by coming up with the term polter frogs. So that was amazing. All right. Happy Tuesday, y'all. Stay weird. I hope you enjoyed this, and catch you next time. Bye.